Hey, welcome back. Got my headphones on, just checking out, making sure the live stream is, live. So we're going to listen to it here for just a second over here on the YouTubes. Make sure it's connected, got good quality connection. And we do. So that's good. Now all we're doing is waiting on CouchBot to fire. We have a busy day. Like a epic version of the feedback loop. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to pack it in here because what I've been doing the last few rounds that we've had this is really kind of pre-screening the work, mainly because I want to be able to tighten it up and not meander as much as we go through this. I want to make sure that you're getting as focused feedback as I can give. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not even going to be able to review everything that we've got in the queue because Katie submitted some stuff and Eddie submitted some stuff that really should be off screen, and I've already actually responded to a lot of that in the overnight. I was really impressed with some of the stuff that Eddie turned in. Eddie, the one thing I'll say about Eddie is you can really tell when somebody's ready to get direction by the way that they react when they get that direction. A couple times in a row, Eddie has just like completely blown up where he was and immediately jumped on the spot and got aligned with it's like, oh, the moment you make things clear for Eddie, like he just like gets it. So really impressed with that. And CouchBot's fired, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the station because we've got, like, again, so many people to consider today. I just do want to move YouTube right there so we can make it on down there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, greetings. Chris Courtney here. New Pragmatic feedback loop. It's so good to be back. Busy day, and literally, if you're in the program, you probably turned something in today. Because Eve's here, Bryn's here, Eddie's here, Maddie's here, Katie's here. I'm absolutely certain I'm forgetting. Oh, no, I said Abby. Maybe I've got most of them, but if not, we're gonna find out because we're gonna go through the wave of work that has come in today, and it's really all over the place. There's some front end stuff here. There's some survey stuff. There's some fresh market stuff. There's some school stuff like. Oh, Ricardo's here. Gosh, like I said, I knew I left somebody out. So let's jump into the work and let's see what we've got going today. So right away, Maddie's working through the box model exercise, and for comparison's sake, when Maddie opened this up, this is what she had to work with, and the goal here of the box model exercise is to make it hit this particular target. This is the target you're hitting. This is actually an image. So right away she knew the direction that she was going, and really when you break this down, there's a few things to know, and I can point them out for you without really diving into the code. But when you look at the difference between this and this, the border radius is coming into play, box shadow is coming into play, padding and margin are coming into play. And actually, margin's there, but padding's not. Also the shorthand that is utilized for writing front end code is also coming into play because, you could do rounded edges here on the button with shorthand, but you cannot do rounded edges here on particular corners of this box without just simply by using shorthand. So I'm really impressed, Maddie, with the level of detail that you've gone through and implemented here. One thing that I didn't ask you to do is I didn't ask you to really go in and mess with the internal spacing, but it is something that I think is pretty important to pay close attention to, because this one of the things that I've done here is I've been utilizing an eight pixel grid pretty much all the way through. Anywhere that's possible for me to use an 8 pixel grid, particularly between elements. So like this description has an 8 pixel grid that separates the description from the services down below. And the same thing here for this has got a text transform of uppercase for the type of restaurant, chicken restaurant or Mexican restaurant, but there's an 8 pixel margin below that. So I'm trying to utilize 8 pixel margins wherever possible. You did a really good job, I think, on figuring out like what was that box shadow, because box shadows can be a little tricky. Especially if we look over here, like how far off to the side is it? Is it going this way? Is it going up? You got it directionally correct. You might have tried a negative value in there, and that negative value, as you can see, moves it to the other side. But you did a pretty good job on that. So and all of this is really something that when you're looking at something and trying to replicate it, it forces you to think about, okay, so what color would I use there? And there's a lot of different ways that we could write color, and that's one of the exercises that's coming up, just like exploring all the different ways that you can write color. And one thing that I was discussing with Eve yesterday when looking at her brick house project was this idea that sorry, I'm trying to look at one thing. Okay. The one thing about Brickhouse was that you can write CSS in a couple of different ways and it still work, and that's something that it should be really clear in working through this project. You can write CSS a couple of different ways and still arrive at the same basic solution. So I'll give you some notes in your journal, but I want you to know like this is dead on. I mean, when I set the target here and you get here, that's pretty good. And you may be wondering if you're watching this like, well, it wasn't quite like this. It wasn't quite wide enough. This is a little larger. This is just a screen grab, just to kind of like, what does that final version look like? This is meant to be responsive, so as it comes down, one of the things that's interesting, and this is a value that I didn't really ask anybody to write, but if you go down here into, there's a min height. Where is that min height at? Yeah, min height. Min height 200. If you change that to 250, it will shift this and make the box larger. Min height's particularly useful in responsive situations where you want these boxes to always be the same height. Because if I took min height out of here, you can see that the boxes, they line up right now, but the moment that I go a little bit longer or a little bit narrower, they don't. All right. So anytime that you're wanting these boxes to line up, min height can be really helpful. There are other ways. We'll be discovering that when we get into Flexbox and when we get into grid. So if you're wondering like, why is Chris using floats and whatnot? Well, it's because I haven't explained grid and Flexbox yet in these exercises. So just know that like if you're eking toward front end, these exercises are meant to help you understand classes, IDs, all the selectors, box model, colors, type, responsive, layout, all that. You're going to have exercises waiting for you, just like Maddie's working through right here. Eddie, I just wanted to take a second to brag on Eddie for a moment because Eddie basically took his presentation for active weekends and really knocked it out of the park. He did this the first time. It was just way too much information. It wasn't focused enough to help the client really see what they should be doing. His next recommendation, he really followed the guide well, but this is all his research, and that's again, at this stage, I care less about the format and I care more about the research. I do care that it's easy for the client to understand what's going on, which means tightly edit it. You're not trying to squeeze information into every last corner of the one sheeter. But he knows the competition. He's got his observations in there. He knows their participants, and then he has the initial recommendation. Everything supports that initial recommendation. So this is solid work, Eddie. I can't wait to watch your presentation. So Katie has gone through and worked on her About Me page, and so much of this, Katie, is just like dead on. Exactly what I'm looking for. It really tells the story. But the notes that I've left here for you are really meant to tighten it up, to make it a little more concise. And as you said, like first draft word vomit. Totally get it. That's where all of us are headed. I would always rather have a lot to go through to tighten up than to try to basically eke out more if you had like 3 sentences here. So, my goal here is always, can we get enough to work with? You've done an exceptional job there. Now we can tighten it up. It's much harder to go the other way. That's like blood from a turnip. It's not going to happen. So great job there, Abby. Abby, you had a particular problem, and it was driving me nuts, and I'm sure it was driving you nuts. And I want to take a second in Figma to look at that, because there is a slight imperfection, ever so slight imperfection, that when you do it over and over and over again, it produces the error. It doesn't appear immediately, and I was actually able to finally get that to replicate. And it's only appearing on this last screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to connect this overlay back to there. And this is an overlay, open overlay, manual, and you have to move it. Oh, sorry. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not the overlay that I want. We want. Yes, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. We want this one to go up to here, and when we open the overlay, it's here. And when you zoom in, you gotta zoom all the way in, you'll notice that like these are perfectly aligned, right? Okay, so let's go the other way with it. Let's say, okay, well now we're gonna go back. I've connected to that one. I'm going to connect to this one, and it's going to open overlay, a manual, and now we go in and we say, okay, so that's aligned. Well, no, that's not aligned at all, but that is, right? That like clicks right into place. However, we zoom in, you'll see it. This ever so slight imperfection. Right there it is. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why it's there. And man, you've got to get really right up on it. I thought for sure that like this was an imperfection that was like part of, maybe the image doesn't go all the way to the top, but the image does go all the way to the top. So I can't, and it's like you've lined right up with the pixel grid. So I don't see an issue there. What I will say though is that when you go through and you look at this in prototype mode, which we'll do right now, I'll refresh this. So this is the prototype mode, and as you can see, you can go through and you're not getting that error. You can click through these as much as you want, but you click here, and then you click there, and it's fine, right? Click back here, and then you click there. Back here, there, back here, there, back here, there. It's interesting now, unlike earlier, I'm not, oh, there it is. It just appeared. okay? And it's ever so slight. So now, if I do this again, it's not quite, it's not reappearing the way it was earlier. But what I was noticing earlier was as I would click back and forth between this last image, that's what would produce the slight difference. And then the more that I would click on these back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, it would move it down. So I was able to get it to replicate, and what I believe it's being caused by is a slight imperfection in the modal from this last overlay to the next one up. So the problems were always based on the last one. So if I was going to do anything to try to remedy that, I would rebuild that last modal. However, it only presents itself if I'm willing to click back and forth, back and forth, back and forth constantly, and then the error appears. Very few people are going to spend more than 5 seconds clicking around back there. They go, oh, it switches images, and that's, oh, okay, and then they're gone. They're done. So I wouldn't stress on it too much, but I do think it's important that we identify what the issue is so that you know what you're up against. This is one of those gremlins that if it was on your project, on a live project, would drive you nuts. But it's not a live project. So just I would encourage you to wrap up the prototype, knowing that we've at least identified what's happening. But as of right now, I was able to get it to do the error earlier, of course, because I wasn't recording. But now that I'm recording, I'm not getting the error. Why is that? Well, it could be that I placed it just so perfectly this time. But as we know, when we go down here and we look at the modal, as we know, it's not quite, it's not quite right. And I'm going to pull that away. And again, place that one there. It's fine, right? It's dead on. But when we place the other one, yeah, it's actually. Sorry, I just got to zoom in enough to actually grab it. When we place this one down here, well, we don't need it there. We need where's the error? Those are all connected now. I don't recall connecting those. But provided that, oh, well, maybe that's the issue. I need to take that one off. There's something that I've done wrong here. I've connected something to the wrong thing. Either way, I've got myself lost in the prototype here. Although that's a weird error. What is that going to? Oh, it's just going back to the page. Got it. Okay, I'm going to leave this alone. We've identified that there's a slight modal linkage issue there, and I want to come over here now to your survey, because you also have a survey in here, and the survey I think was pretty good, Abby. But one thing I would say is this: describe your lifestyle. I know that you need section breaks in here so that you can say, do you use meal subscription services? If I say no, I don't want to go through the rest of this. I want to skip over this. I do think this describe your lifestyle should go at the end with the ongoing research project. So it's like there's 3 sections to this. There's First section, do you use meal subscription services? Yes, no. Um, and then it skips to, if I say yes, it skips down to how often do you order meals from a subscription? And then if they say no, it skips to describe your lifestyle. And describe your lifestyle basically says this is an ongoing research project. Would you like to be involved in further rounds? That's you could also ask a question there if you wanted to. If you said, do you use meal subscription services? And they said no, you could ask a follow-up question that says something like, you answered no. Is there a particular reason why you have opted not to use a meal subscription service to date? And you could give them a list of options. You could just leave it a blank field. But it would be something you could use as a qualifier, because there could be a reason to talk to people who aren't actually using any of the services. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's an opportunity there that's being missed. So I think keeping them somewhat in the loop is helpful, but I don't want to obviously have them go through all these questions about meal subscription services if they've already said no. So I think your questions are pretty good. Just a little reordering and putting those section breaks in there so you can use the conditional logic to leap around would be helpful. Bren is here. Where is Bren? Bren, you've got a lot of work that's been done on your flow map project. The one thing I noticed from your notes is that you said optional actions are designated by copy between the parentheses. Wish I could make the boxes dashed, or could change the text to italic, but it doesn't appear to be an option in flow map. So, like, one thing that you could do, so I'm gonna kind of zoom in here and look for the optional linkages. I believe that they are all on this, scheduling assignments piece. So this is start date, due date. I believe that you're right as far as type goes. Like, you can change the color of it, but you can't really do much more than that. And as far as the boxes go, you can change the shape of the box. So if you said, well, maybe if it's optional, it's slanted. You could do something like that. So long as you had like a legend that explains what that shape is doing, I think you're fine. The other thing that a lot of people have used in the past is actually modifying the line. So, the line becomes dashed if it's optional. So that's something to consider as you're going through, like, if that line is optional, maybe, obviously it's if it's optional in, it's optional out. But just know that there are some options available. I do think so long as you're very clear about what these optional tasks are. You could also come through and look at color. Maybe you change the color. Maybe that's an option. You could and the same thing. I think you could change the color of the text if you wanted to help identify one thing being an option over another. But I just wanted to mention that I think the direction that you've gone here is pretty good. Actually, that was blue, not there. You go. I think the direction that you've gone is pretty good. But I just wanted to make sure that you realize that there were some ways to come through and customize this more, if you wanted to really push that further in terms of color coding your flow. I'm always a big fan. Typically speaking, we start here with our terminators as different colors, and then sometimes we'll colorize the lines. But you can go a lot further with that if you really wanted to. But I did think that the flow changes that you've made here are effective. And then finally, Ricardo. We've got a few minutes left here, and Ricardo, I've actually got a session coming up with Ricardo. I believe that you've jumped ahead here on the highest priority. Like, we haven't really identified the priority yet, but I do think that you've broken out the information, and that's great. The other side of this is you've also refiltered those stacks, so that you've said, okay, well, these are issues, these are difficulties, these are technology based, these are specific to parents and students, these are specific to education, and having 4 stacks to look at, I believe helps you basically reorganize your thoughts and get away from the idea of, oh, that was something I heard in a user interview, or that was something that was really strong from the stakeholder. You want to basically the idea here is we're getting everything out on the table so that we can look at it in a different context, and that will help us set the priority. So we're going to need to review this. I think we'll probably back up a step, but the fact that you've taken it this far really gives us a lot to work with. Okay, so I believe, I just want to make sure that we've hit everybody. So that's Abby, that's Bren, that's Ricardo, that's Abby, that's a survey, that's Maddie, that's Eddie. Okay, yeah, I think we got it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, wide world of feedback loop this morning. It was great seeing so much work in here. I am really super excited to get my day started. I'm going to be seeing a number of you today. And for the rest of you, I hope that you'll, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're looking for mentorship, reach out to me, Chris@newpragmatic.com. Happy to talk. Or you can sign up for the Discord channel at newpragmatic.com. And otherwise, I'll see you right back here tomorrow for the feedback loop. Take care.